Yes, yes.
Okay, what I want to first to speak about to make a few preliminary remarks, which are, it seems to me, they are valid for the entire history of this literary genre, the novel, and not just only about the novels. First of all, I want to remind everybody that narratives, stories, are about human beings, their actions, their passions, the ideals and the norms that guide them. And I'm saying this, I often tell my students and my friends, it's very important when one reads, let's say, don't read Madame Bovary, it's not for children. When you read Madame Bovary, I personally am not interested so much in free indirect discourse and all this stuff. I'm interested in what happened with this woman. She's crazy. She's so unfortunate. It's terrible. This is what interests us in stories. And also, these narratives are not about everything. They're about human beings and those who are close to them. They are their families, their cities, their networks of friends. They don't talk only about individuals, the way idealist philosophy is interested in who is me. And they don't talk about the whole universe either. They look somewhere in between at our network of links. And these individuals are very strong in ancient novels, but also later there are strong individuals in I Promessi Sposi, you know, Lucia and Rodolfo. They are strong people, or they are very sensitive. Sometimes they are very sensitive, 18th, 19th century. If you ever read Dickens, The Little Dorrit, how sensitive people are there, or they are in the more recently, in the last couple of centuries, 20th century, the beginning of the 21st, novels, narratives are particularly interested in enigmatic individuals, in enigmatic human beings. The examples are the great novels that nobody ever finished or just jumped to the end. Ulysses by Joyce. There is an international prize of patience for those who finished it. Stefan Dedalus, in Proust, even longer. Do we know anything about them? They are enigmatic human beings, and 20th century is very interested in this kind of. That's the first. This is the second. First of all, human beings, actions, passions. Second point, their networks. Third point, about historicism. Yes, literature is linked to the period where the writer lives and writes, but it always has a certain independence, a certain autonomy, as people call it. I like better the term independence. There is no absolute determinism, because writers look around themselves, but also, like every human being, they do also whatever they want to do. And sometimes it's successful, sometimes less. And let me add here, periods themselves do not have a total uniformity. In school, we were all told, I don't know, Middle Ages, Renaissance, classes, Baroque classes. It's not like that. In each of these periods, there are many versions, many varieties, a lot of multiplicity and conflict. And finally, final preliminary point is that writers who are very talented are really worthy of admiration. They are fabulous. However, this idea promoted by people like Immanuel Kant in a country that used to exist, Prussia, this idea of the genius and that the geniuses establish and decide about how human beings advance at the national level, at the artistic level. It's not so true. It's not so true. Geniuses are wonderful, or people too. I don't like to say X is a genius. I like to say X has genius. Yeah. In French literature, Balzac has genius. Proust has genius. And these people are wonderful. But they invent certain things, they imitate certain things, they improve certain things. The invention is not always the task of a genius. Usually, less great writers invent new things. They are very inventive, and then more talented writers come afterwards and they improve and they make really memorable works. Okay, so this being said, let me go a little bit, say a few words about the novel. And there is a very interesting competition among nations and among periods. Who invented the novel? And the idea is it's a little bit like in elementary school, in primary school, where kids will say, no, I invented it, professor, I invented it. And then, the Spanish people say, oh, we invented the novel. No, sorry, the modern novel, they say. Cervantes invented it. The French, oh, come on, Madame de Lafayette, la Princesse de Clèves, she invented it. Then the German, oh, how can these Latin countries invent something? We, the Germans, invented the novel. How? I don't know. Goethe, they found this super boring novel by Goethe, supposed to have invented the modern novel, Wilhelm Meister. Congratulations to the Italian scholars who did not go into this competition and didn't say we invented it. And in fact, what is so interesting, we'll see in a minute, is that in fact in Italy, something very, very, very important happened, which made possible the interest in the ancient novel, namely the Platonic Academy in Florence. So we'll get to that in a moment. The influence was, it's a bit forgotten, but it was an incredibly important. Okay, so because they have they rediscovered Plato and Plotinus also, and they understood, they had Marsilio Ficino and his friends, they had a few fundamental insights: the unity of the world, the unity of the human species, and also it led to the creation or recreation of a literary genre that represents. So let's go now to what many people realize that is the beginning of this literary genre, the novel, namely the the ancient Greek novels, as they are sometimes called. We could call them also the Hellenistic novel, because they appeared during a moment when the world around the Mediterranean was unified, and it had a common culture with the most elegant language being Greek, and the widespread language, little by little, being Latin. And there are several such novels. The most memorable, it seems to me, are Leucippe and Cleitophon by Achilles Tatius, and the Ethiopian story by Heliodorus, the 3rd or the 4th century. We don't know exactly. We need to mention also Daphnis and Chloe by Longus. It's very, very important for its for the creation of what would later be the pastoral novel. And we'll talk a little bit about the Ethiopian story. And one very, very important thing is that we need to reflect about we need to reflect about this notion of the individual outside the world, the individual who is not completely part of the world. And the origin of the individual as being somehow outside the world is not a modern invention. It is a very old one, and the French anthropologist Louis Dumont, he understood by doing research on Indian culture, he understood that the moment when the first moment where these individuals who are outside the world appeared was the moment when certain certain human beings devoting themselves fully to an ascetic view of the universe, they started to consider that their links with the divinity is more important than anything else. And the kings and the people respected them for that. They were very respected. And they understood that this link with something which is outside the world gives them a certain kind of independence related to the world. And it's very interesting that during the Hellenistic period, the philosophy, by emphasizing wisdom, by emphasizing the way of living, Pierre Hadot, this French historian of the Hellenistic philosophy, emphasizes this very nicely, also reflects about human beings who are more or less cut from the world. Stoicism is like that. The Stoic philosophers are interested in adversity. The whole world can be against us. And we as individuals almost outside the world, inside, we build something like an inner citadel. This is the Stoic expression. This inner citadel is stronger than anything else in the world. And the Neoplatonic philosophers during the same period, they understand the totality of the world, the unity of the world, and the inspiring power of ideas. So this is the philosophical atmosphere which makes possible the ancient novel. And let's just look a little bit at the genres that were popular before, namely the epic poems, especially the Homeric poems, and the tragedy. And in these older wonderful genres, the emphasis is the center of interest is the tribe, the polis, the city, their customs. It's very interesting how at home is a sacred notion. To be at home, and the home is very, very obvious in the Latin culture, in Rome. Giambattista Vico understands very, very well, describes it very beautifully, the sacred character of home, of being at home, and also the meaning of hospitality because of that. You can be hospitable, allowing somebody to participate in the sacrality of your home. And this is why, interestingly enough, two of the most important topics in the ancient culture, in the Mediterranean ancient culture, the Greek culture in this case, are about a violation of the sacrality of home and the violation of hospitality and of the sacred links, sacred matrimonial links. Okay, either sacred matrimonial links or the raping a person who lives there in this home that hosts you. Not, I hope you understood that I'm alluding to the Iliad, because at the origin of the Iliad, long before the poets start to say wrath, thing, oh God, the origin of this is Paris, who is a host in Menelaus' house, and he there goes against, violates hospitality and violates the sacred links, matrimonial links. And the same thing is true about Oedipus. Whatever people said, and however much money you pay to your psychoanalyst to tell you stuff about your mama, the true roots of the Oedipus story is a rape. Is Oedipus' father, Laios, was hosted in the house of Pelops, because according to the laws of hospitality and the custom of hospitality, and there he raped a teenager, the teenager son of this host. And this story, the Oedipus story, is a story about a crime is inherited. The father commits a crime. The punishment meant, if the punishment cannot touch the father or the mother, they will touch the punishment will touch the son, who is punished for his father's transgression. So it's very interesting how in this epic genre and in tragedy, they focus on the conflicts between tribal conflicts or city issues related to customs, and about this small network of families, blood links, and in some cases the laws of the city. And in the Ethiopian story, everything changes. In the Ethiopian story, we suddenly see the unity of the world. There is no difference between races, between kingdoms, between the origin of people. And we have something which I could call not the individual outside the world, but the couple outside the world. For the first time, we see a couple which is united by the will of the gods, by the will not of the gods, by the will of the God. There is one single God, the sun god, seen in various ways in various cultures, and the priests of the sun god, be in Egypt, in Ethiopia, wherever, these priests of the sun god guide this couple. They put them together and they guide them through the world in order to reach finally their homeland, which is Ethiopia, a kind of a legendary place above the rest of the world. And at every point, these two characters, Theagenes and Chariclea, who fall in love at Delphi, at the Olympic Games, who fall in love. They don't know why, but it's clearly that the gods put them together, or God put them, the divinity brought them together. They have to run away. In order to be together, they have to run away. One of them, Chariclea, is supposed to be the daughter of a Greek merchant, a very competent, a very good Greek merchant. Theagenes is from the family of Achilles, and Calasiris, the priest of the sun, tells them run away. And there are many adventures. They run away, and everywhere they have to fight, or they have to face, no, not to fight, to face the hostility of the world. And a shipwreck throws them on the Egyptian shores. They run through Egypt. They are persecuted in various ways. And they would, by chance, or guided by the solar god, they will reach finally Ethiopia. And the subject is not to fight. I should not have used the term fight. These are not fighters. They are runners. They run away. They run away because they want to protect themselves from the world, and they want to stay together independently of the hostility of every single spot in the world except the king and queen of Ethiopia. You know the story. If you don't know the story, and we can stay until tomorrow morning, I will tell you the story. These two, it turns out that Chariclea is in fact the lost daughter of the queen of Ethiopia. And the queen of Ethiopia, when the girl was born, gave her to this Greek merchant to take care of her. Why? Because in Ethiopia, people have a brown face, okay? The skin is brown in the climate of, with the sun of, in Africa. So, but for some reason, while the queen of Ethiopia was making love with her husband, the king of Ethiopia, she looked at a painting representing the portrait of Andromeda, who was painted having a white face. And this old superstition, or the old belief, no, sorry, the old belief that if a woman looks at various things, especially colors, when she's pregnant or when she is just impregnated, it will have an influence on the appearance of the baby. I must say that this is an old belief, but my mother, 56 years ago, she still believed that if a pregnant woman looks at roses, the kid will have pink faces. So she looked at Andromeda, and the child was white. This girl was white, and she was terrified, the queen, that her husband would believe that she cheated on him. So she gives the daughter to this white daughter to Charicleus, this Greek merchant. Chariclea and Theagenes are put together by the gods. There is a shipwreck. They are in Egypt. In Egypt, they would be persecuted by the Arsake, who is the wife of the governor, the Persian governor of Egypt. Chariclea will be almost, she would almost die. He would almost, Theagenes also. There are adventures after adventures, and finally, only at the end, they reach Ethiopia, where I don't want to go into all the details. Mother and daughters realize that the link between them. They are incredibly happy, and unfortunately, Theagenes, being a foreigner, he has to be executed. And at this point, and this is the end, the priests in Ethiopia and the people in Ethiopia implore the king to drop this old custom about killing foreigners who cross the borders illegally. And he does it, and the young people would be married and would be happy. So you see, it's not just a reflection about this couple outside the world who has to run away and be protected just by the power of the sun god. It is also a subtle reflection on political regimes. We have a savage freedom there. And there are these pirates who kidnap at some point Theagenes and Chariclea, but they cannot do much because they are so wild, they fight with each other, there is a total disorder. There is also a savage, wild authority. Arsake in Egypt is a wife of the Persian governor of Egypt, who wants to have Theagenes. She's in love with Theagenes and is ready to kill Chariclea in order to get Theagenes. There is a more civilized freedom. The city of Delos, the city of Charicleus, where Chariclea grows up, it is a republic. It is a republic, but like all republics, it's a little bit disorganized. Civilized freedom is okay, but it's not perfect. It is the civilized authority which is perfect in this novel, namely the kingdom of Ethiopia, where there is a king, but the king listens to what the priests and the people tell him to do. This explains, by the way, this kind of approval of a wise monarchy explains the incredible success of this novel when it was rediscovered in Europe in the 16th century. Yeah, this is how kings should be. They should listen to what the population wants and what the priests, and namely the intellectual, advise them to do. Okay. And these characters in this novel, because I mentioned the 16th century, let me say that this novel was not incredibly successful in its time. The Greek is not the most elegant one. People prefer to go on reading Homer and the tragic poets, but the playwrights. But during the long period of the Byzantine Empire, it was successful and it had imitators, and it was finally brought to the West by the people who fled Constantinople after the fall of Constantinople, who came to Italy, to Hungary, and it was translated into Latin. I saw in Rome several years ago, the first edition of this Latin translation, which was printed at the very beginning of the 16th century, and it was translated in French by Amyot, and in all European languages, including Spanish. They translated Amyot translation. Incredible success, huge imitations, a wave of imitations. Unfortunately forgotten now because they are very, very long novels, like much longer, even longer than the Ethiopian story. They are wonderful. I know some of the French ones. They have something like 14 volumes of 500 pages each, or 4 volumes of 500, and they were read by everybody in the 17th, 18th century and remembered until the very end of the 18th century. The characters are quite interesting. These Theagenes and Chariclea, they are perfect. They are perfect. And there is this very nice Russian, Soviet Russian critic, Bakhtin. Everybody heard about Bakhtin. Was a nice person, and he was also persecuted and lost his job. But and I have only sympathy for him, but I cannot at all agree with his ideas about the novel, and he criticizes the Greek novel because the characters do not evolve. They do not evolve because they are already perfect. Why do you need to evolve when you are perfect, okay? It is a form of idealization, and literature idealizes human beings, or on the contrary, sometimes it exaggerates and presents them in a most in the most as a caricature. Okay, the Greek novel overdoes the idealization. Later on, the picaresque novel in Spain or other genres emphasize the faults of human beings, definitely. But this is not a problem. This is not a problem. We do not read only to see how people grow or change. We read also in order to see many, many other things. And in this case, we see human perfection in its alliance with the providence. Something that was incredibly important through the centuries of culture. And here too, it is something that Christianity inherits. Christianity inherits from its Neoplatonic, from the Neoplatonic roots, from Proclus and other philosophers who influenced clearly the Saint Paul and the Gospels. Okay, so these characters are perfect, and they're allied with the providence, but not with the world. The world persecutes them, as I said. They resist and run away. And events in this world are contingent. Everything that happens to them is contingent. We don't know why. It's just an image of the contingency of this world and of adventures after adventures after adventures. And only at the end we understand that behind this sequence of adventures, inexplicable, contingent, there was a providential plan. There was a providential plan to rescue them. I know that you, like me, like all people who live in our beautiful, beautiful era of that started with telephones and now we have even internet. We learn that history has a clear advance and it's better and better, and it now and then reaches the end of history. This was not what the Greek novel thought. It looked at the world as a succession of contingent events, and maybe some kind of providential plan is visible behind, but by whom and who is very, very difficult. I must say, as a personal confession, when one reaches my age, one starts to sympathize with this view rather than with the view of the logical advance of history. Okay, so, but in the meantime, between the moment when the Greek novels were forgotten and were rediscovered late in the 16th century, what story were told? Various stories, and the most about strong people. The stories about strong people were the chivalric novels, and incredibly popular, incredibly beautiful, by the way, worth reading, and they had much more than the Greek novels, an oral origin. They are rooted in oral ballads, oral stories, and the characters here, the most interesting characters. There are various kinds of medieval novels, but the most interesting are the novels about errant knights. These people who are not completely outside the world. They are in fact in the world, but they are in a way superior to they are above the world. They are in the world and somehow above the world. And these ones do not run away. They are not like the ancient, like the characters in the ancient Greek novels who are sort of hostile to, the world is hostile and persecutes them and they have to run away. These knights, they are in the world, above the world, and they try to establish some order in the world. They act They constantly act. And their action is governed by a few, not rules, there are a few constant values, maxims that govern their actions. First of all, they look for fame. They look for recognition and fame. They must be recognized and famous in order for them to be able to put some order in the world. They defend justice. Their words are there to defend and reestablish justice. And they respect loyalty. Loyalty is very, very important in the medieval world, and it will be very, very important until late in European history and culture. They are called. They feel a calling, and they are called to respect the laws of courtly love. For them, the love between a man and a woman has to obey some very tough rules which involve deep respect and even adoration of the woman. And also, they must worship and serve God. Okay, it's very, very important. And all this happens in a cycle of adventures that are not necessarily always linked with each other. And what is very beautiful and interesting, we admire them. We admire, and the Middle Ages admire them, and their readers admire them, but they are not perfect characters like Theagenes and Chariclea and the characters of the ancient Greek novel. They are very strong, but they are imperfect. They are imperfect, and they have one fault. There is one thing that doesn't work well, and this is the origin of the action. Let me give you one example, which comes from the Welsh, from the Celtic folklore, and was an oral story, then written for the I think for the first time written by Chrétien de Troyes in Burgundy, the story of Yvain, the knight with the lion, in which the problem is loyalty. The problem is loyalty. Yvain, let's not go through all the adventures, but in a weird way, strange, weird way, Yvain marries who is just a knight. He marries the widow of a lord. So he becomes a lord and has a castle. So it's a promotion, a social promotion. But being like husband and wife at that time, he was probably 17 or 18. He was still a kid and wanted, after his marriage, to go back to the court of King Arthur and play with his friends there and have fun with his friends. And his wife lets him go. But he promises to be back in 3 months, and depending on the version, it's 3 months, and in the Welsh version, I think it's 1 year. And he plays with his friends and forgets, and doesn't go back to his wife. And at some point, a servant of his wife, a beautiful woman, strong, full of authority, arrives at the court of King Arthur and tells in front of everybody that Yvain did not keep his promise. And his wife asks him to give her back his ring. So the servant takes the ring and would go back to his wife. Not to keep his promise, not to be loyal, is the worst thing that can happen in the world of medieval knights. This German 19th century philosopher who had big mustaches, and his first name was Friedrich. I don't know if you heard of him, probably you know who I allude to, is Nietzsche. He, among many stupid things he said some very smart things also, saying the definition of human beings they are the beings who promise and keep their promises. It's a deep, deep statement. Because Ivan is not someone who kept his promise, he is not a human being anymore. And he just runs to the forest and lives among animals in the forest and almost dies. He is saved by a few women and by a monk, and also makes friends with a lion, and together with that lion, he will save various ladies in very difficult situations. Will be having nobody can see his face because he masked his face, and he would be again recognized as a human being and come back to his. It's a beautiful, beautiful novel about how to sort of go beyond your own failure and be still a victor and prove that you are above the people around you by imposing a justice and also making yourself worthy of it. And the second example, equally mysterious and beautiful, is Parsifal. Is Parsifal, in which there are various versions of Parsifal. The one that I personally find the most satisfying is one of the German versions of Parsifal, who is a young kid that his mother keeps him at home because his mother is a widow. His father was a knight, but died in a fight. And the mother does not want the kid to become a knight. But he sees some knights on a road there in the forest and loves them so much he goes with them. The main moment in Parsifal is when he visits the palace of a king who is ill, And Parsifal doesn't know this. Doesn't know why, and we won't go into that, but in a way, God wanted Parsifal to ask this king a compassionate question. What hurts you? What is the matter with your suffering? Why do you suffer? And Parsifal is so shy that he doesn't ask this question. And because of this, the whole castle disappears, and he will never be able to find it again. And he knows that he has to find this sick king, and he will go around the world trying to find it. And anyway, read Parsifal. It's very beautifully done. And it has an interesting insight, which will reappear in literature later, namely that there are things that we have to do, we don't know exactly why, but it is incumbent to somebody to do something. Nobody told Parsifal, you have to ask the king to, you have, when you are in this, it is incumbent in a mysterious way to him to do that. And I'm saying this remains an important, a mysterious, important aspect of literature. It reappears in the 19th century. And it appears in a novel that lots of people read when they were young. It's a French novel, Les Misérables by Victor Hugo. I hope at least you saw the movie. The musical a few years ago is very, very good. The novel is interminable, but the movie is good. In which this man, Jean Valjean, he doesn't know why. He has to take care of this little girl, Cosette. And he abandons his career, his money, just in order to be able to protect this girl running through the world, protecting. It is incumbent to him. This is something which has its origin in the Parsifal cycle, in the medieval reflection about the mysterious ways of our links, our mysterious links with the world. Okay, so let me finish now. Let me conclude with a very easy conclusion, namely, there was a conflict in the 16th century between the Greek novels, the imitation of the Greek novels, and the medieval errant knight novels. And everybody sort of agreed, like Amyot, Cervantes, everybody agreed that the medieval ones are really crazy. And let's go back to Greece. Let's go back to the Neoplatonic Greek view of the world. It's interesting, because Cervantes was part of these polemics, and he agreed with the idea the medieval novels are crazy, and he made a parody, a funny parody of this with a Spanish guy, Don Quixote, who tries to be a medieval errant knight, and he is just mad. But he wrote an imitation of the Greek novel, a Christian imitation of a Greek novel, Persiles and Sigismunda, his last novel that he thought is his best novel, and people will adore him for that and respect him. Things did not happen this way. You never know what will happen next, I would say. And Cervantes is considered as a genius because of the novel that for him was just a little parody. But what we can say that there was an effort to reconcile a certain idealism, a certain promotion of ideals, and a need to write plausible stories, need to be as plausible as possible. Okay, I'm stopping here. Don't cry.
Don't cry. Thank you very much. Grazie allora, grazie dell'intervento. A questo punto, ecco, potete fare qui, come dice Luca, se avete delle domande, potete dirlo, naturalmente scriverlo, anzi, se ci sono delle domande. Perché per ora io non ho ricevuto, Luca, io non ho ricevuto... Thomas, on attend s'il y a des gens qui veulent te demander quelque chose.
Se qualcuno vuole fare una domanda può aprirsi il microfono e farla anche.
Allez.
Ecco, allora se può aprirlo meglio allora, meglio ancora. No, non mi sembra che, come al solito, anche in questo caso, Thomas, même à distance, il y a toujours des problèmes avec les questions, no? Come tu sais. No, allora potrei farne una io, visto che il professor Pavel è rimasto perfettamente nei tempi. Ecco, la domanda che potrei fare io è a proposito proprio della parte finale dell'intervento, cioè quando Pavel afferma, o meglio relativizza diciamo, l'opera, relativizza, cioè un po' troppo, ma insomma relativizza l'opera di Cervantes, in particolare il Don Chisciotte, dicendo una cosa che è un punto fondamentale anche del suo libro. Ecco, volevo anche ricordare questo al pubblico, cioè che tutto quello che avete sentito è in fondo una sintesi di uno dei libri più importanti scritti da Thomas Pavel, che è stato pubblicato in francese, in inglese e anche in italiano con il titolo Le vite del romanzo, ed è un libro capitale, direi tra i più importanti che ancora oggi abbiamo per comprendere la storia del romanzo. La domanda è questa, e molti anche critici e teorici l'hanno posta, immagino, cioè il fatto che Cervantes riprenda, diciamo, il modello delle etiopiche, il modello di Eliodoro, fa sì che la sua opera più importante, diciamo, quella riconosciuta più importante, il Don Chisciotte, venga in qualche modo messa in secondo piano rispetto alla sua ultima opera, cioè il Persile e Sigismonda. Ora però è chiaro che per quanto lui la ritenesse importante, il Persile e Sigismonda non ha avuto poi quella lettura che ha avuto invece il Don Chisciotte. Quindi questa relativizzazione, va bene, siamo d'accordo, Tomà, che Cervantes rilegge le etiopiche, ma poi siamo davvero così sicuri che l'importanza davvero fondamentale per lui sia stata quest'opera. Allora, Thomas, la question est la suivante. D'accord, Cervantes, il a relu Héliodore, mais est-ce que c'est vraiment ainsi, c'est-à-dire le Persile, c'est vraiment plus important que les Don Quichotte?
Ah, no. No, absolutely. You're absolutely. No, I'm saying Cervantes
Oui.
thought and agreed with Amillo and with everybody around him that we need to follow the Greek model, or they needed to follow the Greek model, not the medieval, not Amadis de Gaula. And okay, this was the choice. But Cervantes, frankly, his real talent was comic. He was a great comic author. So he wrote something which is much more successful in a way and memorable, which is Don Quixote. It doesn't mean, what I'm trying to say, not always what very talented people do is successful according to what they want to do. Sometimes he wanted to do two things, and one is very successful, but he hoped that the other one would be successful. So, this is how human beings operate. He's not the only one. This German Czech author, Hermann Broch, that people admire so much, he has some very nice early stories, very, very talented. And then he wrote one of these Joyce-like novels, The Death of Virgil or something. It's just, nobody reads that. And he believed that this is his, the judgment is not this, people do not necessarily know themselves well, okay? That's all I wanted to say. Yeah.
D'accord. Sì, c'est clair, disons, c'est clair. Allora, volevo sapere se qualcun altro qui non si pone con delle domande, quindi non vedo. Ils ont préféré t'entendre, c'est tout. Ah, ecco, vorrei porre una domanda. Allora, la ponga, apra il microfono.
Okay.
Salve. Buonasera. First of all, thank you very much. It was quite interesting. And there's a lot of things that I don't know, but something made me extremely curious. and it was your position of Nietzsche against Nietzsche, because right now I'm reading the genealogy of moral, and of course I think that yeah, that's crazy.
It's not bad. It's not bad. No, yeah, absolutely. Okay. Frankly, Nietzsche is a good guy up to a certain age. He started very well, very smart. And, you know, and at some point he started to really degenerate towards the end. It's terrible. It's terrible because he could have been really almost as good as La Rochefoucauld or, you know, or Pascal. But for some reason, and had these unbelievable insights, okay? And at some point, he wants to become a prophet and has a lonely guy on the mountain, Zarathustra, telling all, and even there are beautiful moments. But towards the end, the theory of the race and the theory of the strong race, this is just, as the Americans say, BS, okay? Between, sorry to say, between Plotinus and Nietzsche, I completely vote for Plotinus.
Oh, me too,
Okay.
of course.
Okay.
Of course, I would.
And between Marsilio Ficino and Nietzsche, it's totally Marsilio Ficino.
No, I agree. It's just that I think there are some very high moments and some very low moments.
No, absolutely. And he has great, he had one feels like, you know, I'm from Romania, and in one of the Romanian writers writes a funny story about a teacher in which a very good kid in the class makes a mistake. And he says, because you make this mistake, you have to have 3 times puff. Why 3 times? Because you are a good guy, and the good guy should not make mistakes. That's with Nietzsche. He's so smart, he should not have made the mistakes he made later. Yeah.
So, thank you very much. I agree.
Sure.
I totally agree.
Okay.
D'accordo, grazie Nicole per la domanda. Ci sono altri che hanno qualcosa da chiedere al professor Pavel? Thomas, il n'y a plus... Il me semble qu'il n'y a plus personne. There is nobody. C'è qualcuno? Sì, sì, certo, prego.
Good evening.
Sì, sì.
I would like to ask this question. Is
A bit louder, I cannot hear.
You can't hear me?
Forse deve alzare il volume.
Prova a mettere le cuffie.
Sì, attends.
Sparito.
Provi?
Mi sente?
Sì, io la sento. Thomas, tu l'entends?
Can you hear me?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. Okay, I will try to speak loudly.
Yeah.
With regard to this providential plan you have been speaking about, is there any connection between the mother of Chariclea, Ivan's wife, and Parzival's mother? So you spoke about this providential plan, who is in a way starting the story of these characters. The mother of Chariclea gave her away. Ivan's wife is trying to get him back, and Parzival's mother is trying to hide him as she doesn't want him to become a knife. Is there any connection?
Interesting. I never thought about this, but right. What you are saying something very important about that the fact that in these novels, Greek novels, medieval novels, in which they are built as a long sequence of adventures, there is a need for a unity of the plot. And in the Greek novel is clearly providential. It's clearly providential because of these priests who are there. Or intention is to show this coherence as providential. In Parsifal, I'm not so sure. Maybe there too. Maybe Parsifal. Maybe there is a providence which makes the little teenager Parsifal see the knights and follow them. Yes, yeah, but it is not. It is different because there is in the Parsifal case there is also the error. He makes an error. He makes the medieval novel has this imperfection of the knight, which is very beautiful, and the knight has to improve by his own efforts. Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure I can answer now, but it's a very interesting issue worth thinking about. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Grazie, Deborah. Qualcun altro? Va bene, io direi che se non ci sono altre domande, siamo stati bravi, siamo rimasti nei tempi